Yo, we live on Facebook. We live on Facebook.
Yo,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Drew Sanders, co-founder of the Aware brand. I got my guy with me, the brand architect, the designer himself, Mr. Omar Dismute, man, my other partner. What's up? What's up?
Happy Friday. Happy Friday. What up, bro?
Hey. But we got a special guest with us today. He I've known him for some time now, you know what I'm saying? But for y'all out there, man, he's a business consultant, he's a marketing guru, he's a social media motivator, but he motivates people outside of social media. He really touches the people, he gets in the community, he speaks to us, man. Y'all might know him as Mahdi Speaks, but this is my guy, Mr. Mahdi Woodard, man. Thank you for joining us today, bro.
Man, what's up, man? Thank you for having me, bro. I don't take it lightly to be able to join you guys on the platform. I'm just looking forward to building, man. I'm happy to be here, bro.
Appreciate you, man. So for those who don't know you, man, like, what would you say? Who are you, and like, what's your why? Like, what's your purpose?
Yeah, that's a simple question that's loaded. But like seriously, I'm a son, I'm a brother. Like somebody else is sort of out here in the world doing our best to take the crazy ideas that we have and sort of manifest them and make them real. I've been through my fair share of hardship as a most. The difference now is that I'm just deciding to be a voice that sort of normalizes the narrative of what it really feels like to go after stuff and highlight the ups and the downs. So, they say people don't post their losses. I share my losses. I share my wins. I share my story. But my biggest why, man, is like, I'm just in it to help folks, bro. Not on no cheesy stuff. I think some people need an additional person to help them think about things differently. 100%. And I'm happy to be one of the people that occupy that space.
That's dope, man. I love the fact that you say you like to post the losses, man. A lot of people stray away from that, man. And I think you have to have some type of awareness of self to like be able to be vulnerable in the sense to share that with the world. Let's talk about when your awareness journey started. Like, when the light bulb hit in your mind, you was like, you know what? I want to go up another level within myself. I want to go up another level mentally, spiritually. When did that start for you?
Man, I think like anybody, it comes in waves, right? So my first wave hit as a child. I knew I was different from the other kids in the classroom, right? Like the teacher talked to me different. My peers looked at me different. So I think naturally I felt the obligation to see how deep that could go. I would probably say the biggest impact growing up was being young and playing sports, man. Because I say everybody else played football, but I played quarterback. Like you're a part of the team in a different type of way. And so it puts you in this place where you always have to be thinking ahead of the game. And I've sort of used that same approach in life. But to sort of make it more relevant to where we are now, my mid-20s, after I had checked those boxes of like fancy corporate job, make a bunch of money, and this should be the road to happiness, I looked up and all I can say, Drew, is like I felt like I was in the passenger seat of my life and not the driver's seat. And so I knew I had to make some changes, bro. Absolutely. So I'm 33 now. I was about 26.
I will have to say that was like the same time it hit me too, bro. Like around like 25, 26. I think, on my 25th birthday, my boss at the time told me about my attitude. He was like, man, you gotta check your attitude, man. But that hit so deep for me, man. Like, it made me like look at myself from a different perspective. I was like, hold on. So that's what started that awareness phase for me. But you mentioned something about playing sports. I played sports in high school and even in college myself, man. But I'm kind of like, I met you like 7 years ago through Ryan Haslam. Yeah, big shout out to Ryan. I kind of like witnessed your growth a little bit, but at the same time, like I did my research. I did notice that you played football and stuff like that. So like, you mentioned a little bit what inspired it, but what really kept you going to keep growing though? Because you said this about the quarterback, and you always see it from a different perspective. And I understand that because I was a wing back and wide receiver, so I know what the quarterback role is. But and you guys have a crazy vision. You got to have a vision to be a successful quarterback. So I know you saw the vision for yourself, but what kept like you inspired and kept that fire within you to keep going?
Man, a lot, right? So I think those of us, it's sort of almost cliche, those of us that say we come from humble beginnings. When you go back in between worlds, so I'm living in sort of two realities where I live in a different city, I live in a different way, I got my fancy job again, But when you go back to where you're from and you see the duality, and sometimes you can experience that duality in the same day. I was only a 4-hour drive away from my old life or my old world. So part of it is that you feel almost a moral obligation to say, what happens if I push myself so that other people from where I'm from can see what's possible? Not on no ego stuff, but on a let's document the process. Let's show somebody how to get out. Let's show somebody how to push it to the max, just because that's what we're supposed to do for the culture. You know what I mean? Like no other reason other than that. So you stay motivated by having a sense of self, as you mentioned. I come from good stock, man. I got great parents. I got great mentors, good friends. So almost just I don't know, bro. It's like it's been in me for a while, and I'm thankful for the people that always reminded me of that, even on times where I might have slipped up and not thought about it myself.
No. You said a lot right there, and I can resonate with a lot of that as far as having good stock and having like a good foundation. But I'm stuck on the big fancy job. Like, so I've been following you, and I know you talk a lot about the things you did in corporate and kind of the branding stuff that you was responsible for. So like, what made you take that jump, bro? Cause I hear you talk about doing it smart and things you could have did over, but like what sparked you to say, you know what, this ain't it? What got you to the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so man, I think a lot of people are gonna be able to relate to this. But I looked up in my job, in my sort of career environment, and I'm like, yo, I'm not even 30 yet, but I'm like the second or third highest ranking person in the department. And on one hand, it's like, oh, that's dope. You should celebrate it. On the other hand, I'm like, what's going on inside this culture for there to not be anybody that I can look up to and be mentored by that looks like me, that thinks like me, that can help develop me? Like, do I want to keep going down this path if everybody that came before me is no longer here, right? So like, when I really thought about it's bigger than work. I think when you're in school or when you're coming out of college, that's the motivation. As you get older, you realize you're building your life. So I'm going to spend a disproportionate amount of each day in this environment that doesn't welcome me, that doesn't allow me to bring my full self into this place. How much of this can I really take? So I think that was the catalyst for me saying, I gotta set up a way to get out of here in a sustainable way, not in sort of just an emotionally reactive way. And then, yeah, to your point, like I talk a lot about what that looks like because we can only make the decision based on the best information we have at the time. And so being young, and again, not having as many people to help me navigate it, I did some things wrong in my exit that I try to help people sort of correct when they decide to make that step for themselves. Okay.
So just to give like the people who tuned in a little bit more nuggets, like how was it starting out for you? Like what was that road like?
Man, I'll say my life was fake because, all right, going back to college, I think a lot of people are unsure what they want to do. Right. I knew I wanted to do something in business. I wasn't sure which direction. I was really good at math and science. I also had this creative side. I didn't know what marketing was on the corporate level. Like our interpretation from inner city Atlanta is like, I would just call more of your activation-based marketing. I didn't know that it was somebody's job to sit back and plan the future of your favorite brand. I didn't know that when you walked into a grocery store, the reason it looked this way, the reason things were designed a certain way, was some smart ass people in a room coming up with these plans. So once I found out about that, and I could bring both the analytical and the creative side, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is y'all cheating. Yeah. So, man, I got a job right out of college. Well, sorry, right while I was still in college. I went through a couple of big companies, and shout out to them. A bunch of big brands, and really learn how you build companies, multi-billion-dollar companies the right way. And I was fortunate, man. I've been all over the world. I've launched over 1,000 products in 10 plus countries, and really did so sort of really, really early in my life. So it gave me that global perspective. But going back to what Drew said and kind of where we are now, you got this local targeted type of targeted. I'm over here making up words. You got this localized.
I all day, bro. Don't worry.
No, it's this targeted, localized experience. So I'm looking at things globally, but I'm going back to my real reality and like, I can do something different to impact where I'm at.
Well, that's good.
That's what I mean. I love that because I love that because I think that we don't have enough of those experiences in the community, bro. Like like for me, I'm like now living through that a little bit. Like I'm working corporate, and you know, I told myself I wish I could have had like that experience you had like early in my like my early 20s, mid 20s versus now. But I think it's so needed for entrepreneurs to have that in-house experience of a corporate space, so you can see like how it operates. You know what I mean? Because especially if you're a person of color, like we don't really get those hands-on experience like that growing up as a normal kid in like some city. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't even get to see that. Like you say, you didn't even think that there are people in one room coming up with brand campaigns that you're buying from the corner store every day. You know what I mean? Products that you're buying from the corner. So like we don't even think those. Because I'll do some sampling. So for those who don't know, I work in the spirits and wine industry, and like when I do some samplings and stuff at some of my accounts, you know, I have some people that somebody that look like me, like, bro, how did you get this job, man? Like, like, wait, you tell me you could do this all day? Like, I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But the problem is, there aren't enough resources in the community to, you know, educate them that this is possible. You know what I mean? These are the opportunities that you have if you're creative, if you like to come up with strategies and different ideas, you know, and just have a vision overall. You could do this. You know what I'm saying? Here go the options. So that just, you know, that was a good call out from earlier.
Yeah, I think we all can actually resonate with that. Like, when I was working within a big agency, like I was the only Black person in the marketing department. And so I agree with that. Like you said, like we have our idea of what marketing is, but then when you get inside of a pocket that's moving fast and that is systems, and you like, you know, so it kind of threw me off a little bit because I was kind of used to my way of designing, like my way of marketing, you know, but then you do a design and it's not optimized for an ad, and this company is making millions a month. You like, oh. And then same with you is like being that only person of color in that space. It kind of really, it does something with your self-awareness. I think so. You know, it's like, like checking those boxes. You want to get to a certain point in your life. Like you want a good job. You want to get to that top level, but then you look around, there's nobody like yourself. It's like you did it, but then you don't have nobody to like
you don't have anybody. You don't have anybody to celebrate with. You don't have anybody to learn from. And I think there's a bunch of things, right? So part of it, because I'm not just an advocate for run up out of these corporations. I think there's a smooth thing between what we're talking about, which is for some people, this is the best route you could ever go down because it has the structure and the resources for somebody to really, really be able to go in there and sink their teeth in it, right? Then there's the other step of people who say, hey, man, I like the structure and the resources. There's some problems here, but I'm feeling charged up to do something about these problems, right? So everybody can't see the brick wall and say to hell with it. I was just one of those third cases where I never really set out to be an entrepreneur. I set out to find a better working culture than what I had been exposed to. And at the time, it was best for me to create that. So I'm not against going back if it makes sense. But what I am against is moving into a culture that doesn't allow me to truly show up and kind of be the person that I am.
No, that's good.
Because I mean, I think, you know, there's just corporate, I think, needs to understand that, you know, they talk about, you know, diversity and, you know, equality, equity, all that, right? But like a lot of these companies don't even practice it, man. Like how do you expect to hire somebody, a person of color, but you want them to feel like they have an opportunity to move up the corporate ladder, but they don't have anybody in managerial, director, like for those type of roles that they could look up to and feel like, okay, I do actually have a chance to get to this position in this role.
Right.
So I mean, that's just a disconnect, and I think that corporate needs to understand that and really practice what they preach, you know.
Yeah, and it's, man, I think it's a ripe opportunity. So it's bigger than just let's make everybody of color feel happy. And it's more so about let me truly welcome this different perspective, because this shit can actually push our own agenda forward. This increases our profit. This increases our retention. This increases sort of all the other metrics that are important to us when I welcome in this additional point of view. And it's bigger than like, so I think it's a combination of like companies are it's bigger than like craft brews on Friday and beanbag chairs and pool tables and stuff that caters to millennial. It's more so, how do you allow a young person, especially a young person of color, who doesn't seem to fit the mold, to be able to come in and be at home?
Yeah,
it's important.
No, that's good. Like I love your transition. My transition was a little bit different. Like I just got tired of the rug being pulled up, from under my feet, and it wasn't performance based,
Right.
So like 2009, I was in a situation to where our department was losing funding and they had to kind of like restructure, downsize, all that. And they, and they put the plug on a lot of our positions. That right there let me know like, oh, well, I was doing all I was supposed to do. Like this, well, it's not in my control. So I had that kind of awareness then, so I'm glad to see your perspective was like, you saw it was room for another way. So so I like the fact that you were solution based. Mine was kind of out of a situation and I just, the entrepreneur who make a way out of nothing. Like that was my type of thing, So I like that. So I want to pivot to the quotes real quick.
Okay.
Because really, I haven't met you before, and I could tell by social media and the fact that we have a mutual acquaintance that you solid, the vibe is already there, and I know that you're very in tune and you have a social responsibility to what you're doing. So I knew that off the bat.
Wait. I had to pull up some quotes though.
Listen, we got some quotes.
Let's just get into a couple real quick. Let's just get into a couple.
Let's do it, man.
So one that stood out to me was talk about your blessings more than you talk about your burdens. That really was that resonated with me. But I want you to explain it, what you mean by it first, and then I can, we can talk about it.
So I think, man, it's very common. Like I'll call it water cooler culture. It ain't just work. It's very common for people to be attracted to the most negative shit that's going on in our life, right? And here is how we build community through either, and I'm not saying there's hardship that happens, and then there's our perception of the things that are happening to us. And typically when they say misery loves company, people can congregate around that stuff and the woe is me and throw yourself a pity party and invite your friends. I think when you really find yourself challenging yourself to look at the blessings, every day you wake up, if you were to write out a list of your blessings and your burdens, there's no way you're telling me your burdens are going to outweigh your blessings for consecutive days. So I think, what would it look like to be a person that every time you started to talk, you start talking about blessings? What would your water cooler culture look like if you were the blessings person? So then people know I can't even come around you talking about it. If I do, I got to keep my burden real short because you about to pull me into some blessings. So I think it's a challenge for myself as well as anybody that sort of, culturally connects with it to try to do the same.
That's important, man. That self-talk, man. Woo! And telling yourself the good and the positive, man. Like it's just universal law, man. The more you talk about something, it's actually going to manifest in your life. And
absolutely,
so yeah, man. So you got a quote, bro? Like, you got something for us?
Yeah, I do. But no, I'm just thinking about, where the energy goes, the attention flows,
Yeah, man.
And so we do see that a lot, in our culture, especially, and it's crazy on platforms because we're streaming live on Facebook now, but on Facebook it's a lot of negative talk, and I like to call it our social journal, like we just every day we put how we feel. So that's good. And like if we just focus on the good things, and that's why like I try to practice gratitude. It's definitely one of those things you got to practice every day because we don't wake up on a good foot every day, but just kind of like just focus on what is good in our life, versus the negative. That will carry you through. Like if your life is 98% negative and 2% positive, like you'll see a lot of significant change if you focus on 2%. And that's heavy, man. So I got one. It's people who make moves have no tolerance for people who make excuses.
Yeah, man. Listen. I think again, like I know what it feels like to be on both sides. A lot of times I write in these dualities, or I'll sample somebody's writing who also writes in these dualities, because I've been on both sides. And I think on some energetic stuff, I'm a Libra, so I'm always looking at that balance, right? So when you are really, really making moves, they really can't coexist, right? Like, because if you're making moves, you're thinking about what's my alternative? All right, I ran into a roadblock. How do I get around it? Okay, I ran into a dead end. Maybe I need to turn around, go above it, go around it, go under it. So when people are really, really putting some stuff in work, you don't have time for the shit that distracts you or that sort of takes you away from it. And I've been in a space when I've been highly productive, and I've also been in a space where your excuses are your best friends.
Yeah.
And then you realize after you get in the habit of just being productive, like the excuses and the procrastination, man, that shit will rob you of your dreams for real. I'm looking at some stuff that me and my business partner, y'all mentioned, Ish, my dog, we'll always run up on each other and be like, yo, how long ago you think it was when such and such happened? Like, I don't know, man, 3-4 months ago, a year ago. And it's like, if you don't act on some of this stuff, the years will go by. So yeah, man, we got to all keep pushing forward and making moves. And they don't have to be these big grandiose moves, right? I'm talking about just daily progress towards the thing that you want to attain.
Yeah,
one
man.
foot in front of the other.
Yeah, man.
Straight up. Huh? Go ahead.
Do you have one?
I do have one.
Okay,
But I just really wanted to just expound on that. Just just making sure that you have like some type of routine every day that you could be consistent with, because it just adds more flow to your life, man. I was just literally talking to somebody about that the other day. Just like, it's hard to be consistent, but it's so much easier on your life when you become consistent. You know what I mean? You're just more into flow. So last quote, man. Last little post. Man.
I'm getting jumped. I'm getting jumped by quotes, man. It's crazy.
There's a thin line between being an entrepreneur and being unemployed. Make the transition when it's right for you, not after an internet guru hypes you up.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah. So I think it's a real thin line, right? So any of us that have sort of these entrepreneurial aspirations, I think we've got to separate what's the idea, what's the energy versus what's the business model. And so that's one of the things where I always say, if I could have done differently, my business could have had revenue coming in before I left my job. But I was working with a limited set of knowledge. I didn't really understand how virtual assistants work. I didn't really think that somebody else could do the work that I felt I needed to do. Where I was falling short is the work needed to be done. It didn't mean I needed to do the work. Yeah. So as a consultant, someone could have booked my schedule, replied to emails, and only let me know when there was something required for me to intervene. But 90% of my conversations don't really require me to intervene. It's a couple of points of clarification. It's an invoice. It's a date on the calendar, and we're jumping on the phone. I don't have to be the person that does that. Every once in a while, you get some questions where it's only I can answer it. Yeah. So I left my job to then put this thing in motion. I could have put this thing in motion while I was still at my job. So there's a thin line between being an entrepreneur and being unemployed. And then on the internet side, like, I'm happy that it feels like the cream is rising to the top. Like, there was about a 5-year stretch where it was like shaming everybody if you wasn't an entrepreneur. And I think enough of those people have kind of washed out of it, that the people that are left are the ones who are really doing it sustainably. And that could be full-time, part-time, freelancing, et cetera. And so I do feel like the conversation is changing to more of a healthy, holistic way to look at it, and not just this throw everything behind your dream, abandon everything, cash out everything, and go sell whatever the hell product you got in your mind. So yeah, and you gotta be careful. Whenever somebody highlights the problem and they're the person with the only solution, then you know you're about to get swindled. I always tell my clients, hey, I'm not the only brand strategist, or I'm not the only, like, we gotta, one, make sure we resonate as people, and two, make sure that whatever your business need is, I'm the person for you. At a minimum, I'm a good place to start, because I can then play sort of director. Oh man, you know what, actually, you should probably talk to Omar about this. This is more up his alley than it is mine. Or no, I'm perfect for this. Or hey, go see this person and come back and see me in 30 days. But I'm never selling something where I'm the only person with the solution. That's just not fair to me. I don't think that's good for the culture.
No, I love that. I love that. Like, I look at myself as, I want to be the resource. Like, I'll be the quote unquote plug. Like, I was the same way, bro. Like, you know, I've been designing for 16 years, you know.
Powerful.
You know, so like, I started in Tuskegee. I taught myself, because Black people really didn't know what Photoshop was. I ended up got a bootleg copy because I had to do a project that that instructor gave us, and then it was like, I went down
a bootleg copy, allegedly,
right? But no, so like, I was going with that, freestyling for so long, and just to your point, I felt like I had to do everything myself, right? Like, because I think, you know, before you get that that certain level of information and knowledge, you think you have to do everything. You think because it's your business, it's your business, right? And so no, that's powerful what you said.
Yeah. I mean, and just to piggyback a little bit on that, because like I am that guy. Like I work and I am an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, you mentioned something about business model, like idea between and knowing the difference between that and the business model. And you know, in my growth of being an entrepreneur, like I've learned how important the business model is. Because as a creative, you know, you get lost in the idea, you get lost in trying to build the brand out, but you rarely spend time on building the business. And I just started recently, and this is just another transparent moment, a true transparent moment on the Aware Convos, just that, you know, right.
We need
but you know, we need the sound effects, bro. We need the sound effects.
Message.
But yeah, it just as of recent, man, I just started taking the business model a lot more seriously, and knowing that I can lean on help and other people to really do the role and take on the job. Because you know, when it's your baby, you feel like you need to do everything, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, no, you're so emotionally connected to it because it's an idea that you created. But when you're handling the business, man, you got to put people in the role to win the championship, bro. So
yeah, and you got to be able. So a client of mine about a year ago, she called me. She was frustrated. She's a realtor. She had a really strong stretch of making some sales, and then things dried up. And she was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what's going on. I said, okay, there's two things we got to fix. The first thing is let's get you back cash flow positive. The second thing is let's stabilize the business that you're building. Hey, cash flow positive. I have a whole army of realtors that you can support, either going to go do a showing or helping them on some back end paperwork things. This at least gets some money flowing while we figure out this other thing that may be broken. So let's parallel path this. When your money dry up, sometimes your creativity and your innovation drives up with it. We don't have to just solve your business issue. Let's solve the money thing by sort of plugging you in a B2B type of experience. Then let's fix your business model so that you can come out of that and get back to doing this thing healthy. And she's like, bro, how does your brain work? Why would you think to do that? And I'm like, because I know what it feels like for the cash flow to dry up. You know what I mean? Like it starts to paralyze everything else.
I love that. But speaking of understanding when the cash flow dries out, you built a brand called Been Broke Before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was in Atlanta, you know, I was in Atlanta when you first dropped it, and I saw just how, you know, it took on a storm, man, in the city, in the community. Everybody was rocking the shirts, man, and it was dope, man. So what inspired you to even start that brand?
So just for the record, I came in while it was sort of forming. So my business partner, Deshaun, is the one that coined the phrase and started to put the team together. So we sat down one day and just talked about big ideas. What are you working on that you know you can't do without a team, and vice versa? This was one of those ideas that was at that table and in that conversation. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Like, this is something that has traditionally been shame in our community that we can now reclaim and talk about differently. I'm not saying that everybody had to grow up in the projects or everybody had to have some crazy hardship, but if you know what it's like at any point to not have all the resources to manifest your dreams, to me, that's a form of brokenness. So now let's start talking about this story. Let's get people excited to share their story. And better yet, let's get people excited to share their tips and tricks for how they overcame that. And so naturally what happens is that you saw, I mean, you would wear the shirt and somebody else would yell out, me too, right? Or somebody else would yell out, I'm broke now, right? But what really happened is that it became a channel to start driving and having conversation. And so that part was powerful. I don't know if I answered the full question, but
I mean, you answered it. I mean, and then, you know, I know you guys put it on ice for a second, but you and I had a conversation before, and you talked about, you know, relaunching it. When can people expect that to come?
So product and stuff is still available for sale on our website. What we're trying to figure out, for those that don't know me or us or that movement, it's a apparel-based social enterprise. So we were selling merchandise and doing philanthropic things in the community. 5 years running of doing a turkey drive with a couple other brands, back to school bash, that whole thing, giving book bags and supplies to kids that are in need. We went through some hardship with one of our business partners passing away. And that's one of those things that I would say, appreciate it, bro. Like, I remember reading business plans when I was in college, and they would say things like, Ralph Lauren, we don't know what would happen under the unfortunate death of the CEO. And it's just like a sentence that you don't really think about until you're impacted by it. So for us, culturally, we weren't prepared. I don't think that there's any way you can be prepared. So now we're in the process of getting our feet back underneath us sort of emotionally so that we can then come back and do what's right by the brand.
That's dope. That's dope. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, that hit the streets hard, man. You guys had a strong wave, man, and just from
we coming back, man. We coming back, man.
Yeah, just from a person who we own our own brand, man, too, and we kind of like take the same approach as you guys, and you know, we need more brands to tell that story and to connect with people on that level, man, so we can make better humans in the future, man, for real.
And then I'll add to that for anybody that's listening that sort of has a fashion brand or they're into the fashion brand. It's one of those businesses where there are a lot of gatekeepers. It's very hard to get access to the capital, to the textiles, to the different things in order to create what you might have in your mind. So I think what you guys have done and what we were doing is find a way to tie a mission and a movement into the clothing so that you can get enough momentum going to then be able to diversify and offer a broader collective from a clothing standpoint. Yes, but a lot of people don't understand it. They're like, man, this is dope. Why you don't have this and why you don't have that? I'm like, because we don't have manufacturing capabilities, right? We've got to get enough going to then be able to come back as a full fashion brand. So again, for anybody that's in this space, sometimes you got to get creative in order to build the resources to really come at it the way you want to.
No, most definitely. A friend of mine asked me, you know, I get, you know, with the whole pandemic, you know, we need to stop, you know, outsourcing manufacturing and let's bring it in house. And why can't we employ our people to do that? I say, yo, it costs money. Like that's the thing. Like it just costs money. And so you just having that awareness to know, like, because you had a post that talked about how we are trying to do the same thing, but we don't have to do the same thing. We can be the ecosystem of that. So I love that.
Like you don't have to be the designer. You could be a manufacturer. You could be someone who like
absolutely
make sure you make, you know, I mean, or drive the shipment. You know, it can just so many different things. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
So I kind of want to pivot just a little bit because now, like, I think just for the time we in, it's a lot of sensitive energy going on. Just what was going on in our culture, in our society, in our own backyards. Like, in terms of business of color, right? Black-owned businesses, like. What can we be doing in terms of best practice? Like in terms of after we come out of this, because a lot of people were affected, right? Financially, emotionally. Like what can we do to set us up after this so we can kind of like maybe avoid this and just and step out there, you know, in the business sense. Like what can we do?
So I think there's a couple of things to think about as far as what's going to happen during and after this. One, as people's economic situation changes, there will be less disposable income to try out on brands and entrepreneurs who haven't been proven. So I would say the first thing is there someone who's doing what you want to be doing that you can support as opposed to going ahead and building your alternative out the gate? There probably won't be as much money to try out all these different brands. So if you see a movement that's growing in your city, if you know some people that's doing well, look and see, do you have a skill that can support what they're already doing? And then let's look at how do I branch out when it's my time, or when it's my season. So the first part, I would say support somebody who's already doing well, who has that mission or those values that you have, even if the brand doesn't totally line up to what you may feel like your personal thing is. Second, I'm the person that says, go ahead and seek counsel and advice before you put all your resources into it. I think we don't think about business and entrepreneurship as a high science. We think about it as like just some shit you can try out and it's going to work because you believe in yourself. We don't think about it the same way people think about law, the same way people think about practice in medicine. But if you don't understand the language of business, it will happily eat you alive. So seek out advice, whether that means bringing consultants in early or whether that means getting a business coach. Those things are critical so that you can show up as prepared as possible. And you still just kind of have to let the market determine what it's going to do. That stated, my last thing is you have to approach it with a level of humility so that when the market says that I'm not interested or that price is too high or too low or the quality isn't good enough, you have to be able to listen to those folks, make some quick changes in your business, and then come back stronger. A lot of times I see people omit all three things. So they don't partner with anybody, they don't find a coach, and they don't listen to the consumers. All you walking on is probably a combination of ego and luck. And neither one of those things to me are what I want to be doing when I'm thinking about building a business.
Oh,
Man, all great points, bro.
that was golden, right?
All great points.
Yeah.
Nah, and then I mean, so for those who are seeking to, to grow in their business and they want a business coach, how do they go about doing that? Because I know some people are lost and they need assistance, man. So how do you go about finding a business coach?
Yeah, so that one is and that in and of itself, for anybody that's listening that want to take on this challenge, I think it's a multi-million-dollar opportunity available if someone creates a version of Yelp for business coaches, something that can separate out the good from the bad, and something that can separate out somebody's unique skills so that you understand that all people don't do the same thing. I don't have the bandwidth, but trust me, if you're listening and you're passionate, that we need a way to be able to rank and sort of get the right people in touch with folks. But I would say the good part from social media is really easy. You probably 3 to 5 questions away or 3 to 5 people away from being pointed in the direction of somebody to start with. And I mean, not to sort of toot our own horn, but I think all 3 of us are good people that you can start and have a conversation with and say, hey, can you help me? If not, do you know somebody who can? But when you come across those people that you think you're more likely to want to work with, I think there are a couple questions that you need to ask of them before you really, really make that decision. I think it's one, have you done something similar to what I'm doing or what I want to be doing? So I could be an amazing person at business, but my knowledge should be very limited to one niche or one area. So you want to know, have they worked with somebody similar? I would say go a step past testimonials and say, is there someone that I can talk to about what the experience was like? Because a lot of times this comes with $1,000 or multi-$1,000 price point. Before you make that level of investment, I don't want to just look on your website and see like the circle head and go like, oh, I love working with Mahdi, he's the best.
Yeah.
Like, yo, can you put me on the phone with somebody? I'm okay. I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly so I can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
I don't expect everything to be positive. But so yeah, I would say try to vet them as much as possible. And then same thing, if you get into contract or if you're working with a business coach, it doesn't take long to decide if this is of service to you. I think after 30 days, you do a 30-day review, see if it makes sense. If it does, you keep moving forward. If not, you find another coach.
It's dope.
That was some good jams. I made a mental note of the coaching Yelp. I don't have the bandwidth too. I mean, I know all 3 of us got plenty of ideas we want to manifest already. So
right.
We put that in the magic bag of tricks. But you said something though, like you gave an example of a coaching call and the woman was kind of frustrated. And I think I know frustration is a part of entrepreneurship. Like it's not easy. We know that, right? Like you're going to be in your feelings, whether you don't have cash flow, whether you not really scaling, you still in the same spot. Like, can we just talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
I think emotional intelligence is very pertinent for us, like to understand, because, I'm really tired of people complaining about Black businesses and the lack of adequate customer service, or, they make one mistake, I'm not going back, and I tell people, I say, maybe we have to get to the root of that problem. I was like, a lot of us, we operate from our emotions because we give it our all, and that's all we know, right? We kind of operate from a consumer standpoint, versus not really knowing how to operate from a CEO standpoint. So just you talk about like emotional intelligence. I think that's very important. I think emotional intelligence is important, especially in this business that we're in.
Yeah, and that's a lot to unpack, so I'll do my best. I think you said something like...
I know it's heavy, bro, but...
So the first part is you have to have some level of awareness or recognition when the thing is happening. So like oftentimes we go from the spark to the actions, right? So like I'm happy, I do some crazy shit. I'm mad, I do some crazy shit. First, we got to recognize like, yo, I'm leading myself towards some type of emotion, or I'm in it now. Then I think we got to have some poise and collect ourselves and go, all right, what are my options now that I'm feeling sad thing? I always think it's a great thing to stop and write your stuff out. Just the actual physical sort of act of slowing your brain down to process is going to help you make a different decision. I'm not saying that every day of your life you drive and something piss you off, you're supposed to stop, pull over and write it out. But I am saying for certain decisions, there's an opportunity to collect yourself and weigh your options. We tend to go with whatever feels best. My mom is probably the best person that helped me get a sense of emotional intelligence. And we didn't call it that back then. She just used to say, if you can put the consequence, all of the consequences before the action, and be okay with any one of those being the consequence, if that still makes sense to you, then perform the act, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're young, that might mean, shit, you're gonna get, I'm gonna bust you, you know what I mean? Or that might mean you're gonna get in trouble or you're gonna get praised. But if you can think about the system of things that could happen and all of those still seem viable, then you can do the act because you're prepared for the consequence. But for us, I don't think we've had the luxury, and I'm happy that we're now talking about it, but therapy needs to truly be normalized. It does not mean that every day or every week you have to be a person that goes to a therapist, but it does mean we need to figure out how do we bring that balance of somebody who knows what to do and knows how to give us a process for working through some of these different types of emotions. Yeah. Part of the reason it's been a luxury is that we didn't have the income to be able to pay for it. The other thing is that we hadn't normalized the conversation in our families and communities, but now people are talking about it. The stigma is going away. There's still a little bit of a stigma there, but I think if you can incorporate that in your journey, once you go to therapy 1 or 2 times, it automatically starts to change the way you think about things if you got a great therapist. Yep. So it doesn't necessarily mean you got to have them on retainer, but be open to saying, I need to find somebody that can help me process through all these different things.
That's dope. And I think emotional intelligence. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I see you got his pencil right there. I got to start writing my stuff down too, because my brain is going.
Yeah. Now with emotional intelligence, though, I think it plays both ways. I love the fact that we talked about it from a perspective within us as like, you know, not being too tough on ourselves when things get kind of out of whack and stuff like that. But it also plays a role in how brands market to their consumers. I think it takes a sense of self-awareness and emotional intelligence to understand what brand messaging works and what doesn't. Can you expound a little bit on that a bit?
Yeah. So like the true intersection of buyers and sellers, right? It's about understanding human psychology. And I think like everything, there's a good side and there's a bad side, right? We're all looking to have problems solved, or we're looking to sort of do whatever else that a brand or a product might offer for us. And so sometimes you're like, man, this is a perfect fit for what I'm dealing with. Other times, as you know, brands can manifest obstacles for you so that they then become the solution. So I think if you're not aware of what this whole thing is, you can easily play yourself buying things you don't want or need, and always feeling the need to fill a void with a purchase. So the consumerism, when it gets to that point where it's out of control, I don't know, like you got to reel that shit in. Right. But understand that brands messaging plays on psychology.
100%.
Right. And so whether it's be a problem and solution based, or whether it be let's take the shift that happened from functional to emotional marketing. Functional marketing used to be descriptive. So McDonald's, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. That's how they used to describe their Big Mac, which was the leading sandwich. And then somewhere along the line, people realized, wait a minute, what if we show happy families eating Big Macs? Then people will connect this Big Mac with making their family happy. It don't have to be logical. It was emotional. And then other companies caught on. So I think the stronger you have a sense of your own emotions, the better chance you can be then using your emotions and logic to make an informed decision before you purchase, as opposed to just being like, oh yeah, I'm sad. New car makes me feel better. Oh yeah, I'm mad. Let me go to the bar and order shots, right? You got to be able to sort of get in control of that stuff, man.
It's dope. It's dope. That's dope. That's dope. We got another question. Like, you know, speaking of marketing, speaking of branding,
yeah.
Like, you know, what would you say is the difference between branding and marketing?
Man, you know what? Like, that's one of them questions I get asked it a lot, and my answer is always evolving. But I'll say this: historically, branding it comes out of marketing. So marketing is looking at way before we get to a form, product, and a message. We're looking at what is a want, a need, or a desire. And then how does a company decide to create something to fill that want, need, or desire? So historically, that's a market. It's a place where a buyer and a seller comes together. Well, what happens is you start realizing that a lot of buyers have the same wants, needs, and desires. A lot of sellers want to fulfill that. So Drew, you have a farm that has chicken. I have a farm that has chicken. Omar's hungry. We both show up to the market. You got your chicken, I got my chicken. How does Omar know which one is grass-fed? Unless somebody decides to message things differently, right? So then you start to say, well, mine are a little bit different from Mahdi. He's feeding some low budget shit. I'm over here feeding the best of the best. I sing to my chicken. I do all types of crazy cool stuff to let them know they're in a happy, loved environment, right? And then the road becomes Drew's chicken, right? And everybody knows that story that gets told about Drew's chicken. And especially when that story is true, over time, whether you remove Drew from the equation or not, as long as you stay true to that brand, it starts to pull itself away from whatever Mahdi or whatever competitor is doing. So the history is, assume we all have very similar items. How do I infuse my values, infuse my culture into what I do so that it shows that it's different from somebody else? Now, those of us that are a little bit more seasoned, we can start to see this from the other way around. So I can start, because I understand marketing, I can start from the branding and back my way in. But I would say for anybody who's getting started from the beginning, just picking a name and a logo and fonts and sort of look and feel is not how you're going to create a brand. You got to really tap into a human want, need, value, tap into your own and see where those synergies are.
I love that.
Yeah, you unpacked a lot of that. Because I tell my clients the same thing. Like, as much as I would love to charge you, your logo is not that important. Especially right now, right? It's more about who knows what you got. And like if you had to choose one, could you choose one? Could you choose like which one is more important?
Between
branding and marketing. Could you choose one?
I would say it's still gonna depend on how competitive the industry you're walking into. Okay. So if you are walking into something with little to no competitors, I don't care what you call it. Right. So
mad about the brand.
Yeah, because I'm in a situation where there are more people that need me than there are people to help those folks. I can just show up, right? So let's say Drew get a flat tire and I'm driving by and I fix flat tires. He don't care what my logo is. I got a tire on the truck that's his size. I can fit or fix a need that he has at the moment. It doesn't really matter how sexy my name is. It doesn't matter if I have a jingle or a commercial. He's in need of this particular thing. But I would say if you're going into something that's highly fragmented, highly competitive, then yeah, that branding is going to at least give you a chance to stand out quicker because it brings the messaging to the forefront.
That's good. I love that perspective, actually.
I mean, I definitely feel like, like you said earlier, branding is obviously just one facet of marketing, right? So, but that brand, like you said, it kind of like differentiates yourself from the competitor. When you start to tell that story and when you start focusing on the messaging and stuff like that and the aesthetics and just how you position yourself, that all has to deal with the branding. So, but it's all one and the same in a sense, but that's just a baby of marketing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because it's birth. So another term people may have heard is targeting and positioning. So who are the people that I'm focusing on? And then how am I going to make myself unique from other people that are focusing on them? So branding is like the supercharged up version of positioning. Because if I can name myself a certain thing and associate imagery with myself a certain way, you will already know what I stand for. You'll already know what I offer because it's baked into the way I present myself.
Man, so before I get into that next question, did you have anything else? You good on the?
Oh no, we good. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that with marketing and branding, you got to read, right? You got to educate yourself, regardless of whatever you want to do. And one thing I remember the first thing you exchanged with me and I knew you was a real one. He was like, "Yo, Drew, you should read this book by Seth Godin, Tribes." And I was like, "Word!" I saw, I checked it out, checked them out. And I'm like a follower, and I know you're an avid reader. So, are there any like book recommendations you want to give to people out there that they could just check out and pick up, and just read on their own, whether it's in regards to marketing or branding, or whether it's for self-help, anything that that you think that will help somebody in their journey?
Man, first, just like, bro, thank you for that, man, because like I give a lot of books and I give my library away and then I go look at it and I'm like, where my books at? And it made me feel good when to hear it played back, because I think books, what we don't do, we don't look at them the right way. We think that they're a one-off experience, whereas the real good authors, these books, every time you reread them, every different level you at, it hit different. So I'm always gonna push Seth Godin because I think he's an easy enough read for you to sit in the airport and do it, but it penetrates you on a much deeper level for you to be like, damn, us 7-8 years later still having this conversation about it. But a couple of my go-tos that I think just sort of always need to be on the list. I think The Alchemist is one that it doesn't matter whether you're on number 1 or number 21, is gonna be different. I think for those that are thinking about marketing or just business in general, going back to this author, Seth Godin, his new book, This Is Marketing. I haven't checked it out, but I've listened to his press tour talking about it. But his classic book is Purple Cow. And so Purple Cow is about this concept that if you create ideas that are remarkable, if you create ideas that are so unique from the average, people will notice them and they'll start to talk about it, right? So if I'm driving down a field, I see 100 cows, none of them stand out. The minute I see a purple one, it's like, holy shit, did you see that, right? You stop, you take a picture, you call your friend, you get on FaceTime. So if you really want your business to be unique and different, it's not just about the color, but how do I create something that stands out in a crowded marketplace? I think that's paramount. So I'll give you one for the journey. I'll give you another one for the business. And then my last one would be The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. So he's a psychologist. And that book is one I started reading. My mom had it. I started reading in high school. I try to read it every couple years, but it was one of the original, before self-help was a thing, it's probably one of those original books that kicked off that culture. But he's so deep, he challenges the way we look at a whole bunch of things. I like the way he breaks down this idea between sort of how we look at love and if it's really what we think it is, right? Or do we have our own sort of ego and attachments inside of it? Is it even as pure as we want it to be? Is it just lust? Is it just, sort of idolizing somebody? Or is it that real deep emotional shit? So 3 different types of things for people. So Purple Cow for business, Alchemist for just sort of going on an internal journey, and then The Road Less Traveled for more of a psychological self-help perspective.
Love that, man. Appreciate that, man. Look, so, we want to wrap it up, but is there anything that you want to leave with the people? You want to, let them know where they can find you. I mean, I saw you just hit 20,000 on Instagram. So you're now an Instagram influencer now. You just passed, you know what I'm saying?
Send me, I need to get a P.O. box, right? Be like, yo, send it to my P.O. box, call my assistant.
But like, where can people find you? Where can they tap into the more information that you be putting out, man? You put out a lot of shit that people can use. Where can they tap into you, man?
Appreciate it, bro. So everything is Mahdi Woodard, MAHDIWOODARD. I'm most active on Instagram, but LinkedIn, Facebook, I got some YouTube things that's coming. Twitter, I'm there. I'm not too active, but Instagram would be the best place to find me. And then just parting words, I think there's enough pressure from the world to force us into enough stuff. I would say challenge yourself, get silent enough, get still enough, and then just embody who you already are. So if you're really thinking about how to get the most out of you, it's already there. You don't have to go start pouring shit in and making crazy tweaks and modifications trying to stand out. You're already who you are. So put your message out there. The people who it resonate with and the people who stay, those people are your tribe. The people that don't, no worries.
I love that. I love that.
And then last piece, man, I'm sorry to cut you, but like you guys building this platform, I don't take it lightly to be able to join forces. So I appreciate you extending this to me. I hope I've done justice. And thanks again, though, man, for the opportunity to build with y'all.
Nah, honestly, bro, it was a pleasure to have you, man. It's an honor to have you, man. It's just always good to champion our brothers who are out here doing good work. And man, you're doing it, man. And I know you're gonna kind of keep on ascending, man. You're gonna keep ascending, and you're gonna keep doing great things. And I'm just looking forward to seeing that. I think we all of us as a team, because we look to you, bro. We share your quotes, man. We talk about it. We have dialogue about it. So you're doing good work, bro. And I'm just proud of you, bro. Man. You know what I'm saying? And it was an honor to have you on.
Definitely,
man.
Definitely.
I'm happy to be here, man.
We want to be a part of your tribe, man. Like I said, I haven't met you formally, man, but I want to keep this going, bro. We definitely seem like you, a kindred spirit, man. And like you said, we definitely champion you. You know, we have people that I know in my network. It's funny. I'm like, how you know that who told you about this song? Like,
right.
So he exclusive.
It's like, no, but I love to see it, man. And the growth is crazy. So keep it up, man.
Yes, sir.
We watching and we learning, man. So we value you, bro.
Definitely.
Man, I appreciate y'all, man. I'm happy to sit in the circle. Whatever I can do to help, let me know. And let's just connect and build online and off.
Yes, sir.
Word. Appreciate it. Yo, for those who are out there, make sure you tap in with Mahdi. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Aware Brand. We got some new pieces out there, the quarantine pack. So if you're not aware of that, make sure you tap in and lock in with us. Subscribe to our YouTube page, like our Facebook page. Again, we appreciate Mr. Mahdi Woodard joining our show today. We'll check back in with y'all, man. Stay aware, stay focused, stay locked in, and most importantly, stay safe. All right, let's get it.
Peace.
Peace.